This is my latest steady rest for the lathe. It's a useful attachment for supporting large turnings like this, which are attached with a chuck or a faceplate. When you're hogging out the interior of a vessel like this, it puts a lot of pressure on the chuck, and it wouldn't be the first time that something went flying. So the steady rest provides support for large turnings. This is going to become a vase. It's mounted in the chuck, and it'll be supported with a steady rest while I turn out the inside. And likewise, a piece like this mounted in the chuck will need a steady rest to support it. A steady rest can also be used for supporting long, delicate turnings. This steady rest is made up of a C-frame with two 20-inch pieces of softwood 2x4, mortise and tenon with a 14-inch piece of 2x4 at the back. Actually, the length without the tenons is 12 inches. The C-frame is strengthened with a 5/16 all-thread rod that goes all the way through to provide strength for the C-frame. The rollers are inline skate wheels, and they make splendid rollers for the steady rest. They're smooth, quiet running, don't leave any marks on the work. And the rollers are carried on these arms with slots so they can be adjusted in and out. Prior to this, I was using this steady rest. Similar design, 4 rollers on telescoping arms, but not a C-frame. Another advantage of the C-frame type mounting is that it's possible to set up the tool rest and actually do turning here between the wheels. These were hard rubber industrial rollers. They worked fine, except they were a little bit noisy. On my old Duro lathe, I used this steady rest. Same idea, a ring-shaped frame bolted to the lathe bed with a 1/2-inch bolt washer and adjustable rollers. These rollers are skateboard wheels. I just bought a surplus store skateboard, threw away everything except the wheels, and used this for steady rest rollers. Building the steady rest can be broken down into 3 parts. The C-frame, the sliders that carry the rollers, and the block by which the C-frame is attached to the bed of the lathe. I've cut out the horizontal and vertical pieces to the C-frame. Got looking at it, and I find I've missed a knot right here where I really need the strength. So I'm going to make another one, another horizontal member. I shaped these mostly with the table saw, ripped to width, and shaped the recess with the bandsaw and the rounded ends, and then smoothed everything over with a spindle sander. But anyway, to build the copy, first step is to rip this 2x4 to width. And I'm going to save this strip to cover the groove in the vertical piece for the tie bolt that ties the top and bottom together. And we're just going to do that by in the saw blade slightly more than 5/16 out of the slot, because we have a 5/16 rod. And I'm going to run the upright in both directions. I'm going to join the horizontal to the vertical pieces with a mortise and tenon. A tenon on each end of the vertical and the mortise in each horizontal piece. If you're interested in this flip-top tool stand, I do have a video describing it and plans available for duplicating it, and I'll put a link to that video in the text below. To make the tenons, I put a dado stack into my table saw and set the fence exactly 1 inch from the innermost blade. And I'm simply going to use a scrap piece of wood and gradually raise the blade when I make repeated cuts until the tenon fits nicely in the mortise. I unplugged to put the dado stack in. I've got to have electricity. Using the same settings, we'll cut a tenon on each end of the upright to fit the horizontal pieces. Now we need to drill the horizontal pieces for the tie bolt or for the tie rod. We'll do a dry fit with the rod. Okay, ready for glue. We'll be fairly generous with the glue on this softwood. A 12-inch spreader. I made the block to carry the C-frame out of 2 pieces of hardwood, glued together in a cross. Fits snugly in the channel between the rails. And to clamp it in place, a 1/2-inch bolt and a plywood washer To make a washer to go under the lathe bed, I'm just going to take a 3-inch hole saw and cut one out of 1/2-inch Baltic plywood. Half-inch hole in it. It's a little tricky trying to hold this washer under here while I put the nut on. So what I'm going to do is glue the nut to this wooden washer with a second smaller washer. I'm going to scroll saw out the hex so it'll fit snugly, and then glue the nut in place, glue the blocks together, and then I'll have a one-hand nut washer assembly that I can easily turn onto the bottom of this 1/2-inch bolt. Here's the washer that's going to go under the lathe bed, and here's the washer that I've scroll sawed a hex to fit the 1/2-inch nut. And I'm just going to glue the nut into this smaller washer, then glue the two of them to the underside of the larger washer. And to glue that nut in place, I'm using auto body filler. I keep this around for fixing mistakes on painted works. A small bit of catalyst, mixed to a uniform pink color. I've put a little bit of oil on the threads so that the filler won't adhere quite so firmly to the bolt threads. And I'm just going to squeeze in filler. I'm trying to squeeze filler down around the outside of the nut hex. Okay, we'll just leave that set for half an hour. And come back, remove the threaded rod and sand the surface smooth. There, the body filler has set. And I can just touch this up on the disc sander and then glue the pieces together. Glue the pieces together. And when this glue dries, we'll have a one-handed nut to put on underneath the. I'm going to attach a C-frame to this hardwood cross with a couple of bolts, and we'll establish its location. The center to the lower and the center to the upper horizontal member is 6.5 inches. The C-frame horizontally 6.5 inches from the vertical to the center, and I'll mark the position of this hardwood cross on the C-frame and drill a couple of bolt holes. Clamped the hardwood cross to the C-frame, and using the holes that I drilled on the drill press, I'm going to hang this over the edge of the workbench and continue drilling these holes through the hardwood blocks with the hand drill. I've installed one bolt, and now we'll drill the second hole. I'm using wing nuts on these two bolts. The idea being that I can disassemble this for a little bit more compact storage. I'm drawing the center lines of the grooves for the sliders that carry the rollers. So I put in a chuck in the lathe with a small drill bit to mark the center. Now, there's 2/4 inch bolts in each slider. And the trick here is at the top. One bolt will have to be outboard of the 5/16 threaded rod, and one has to be inboard of it. And the same thing is true for the other diagonal. At the bottom end, the 2/4 inch bolts have to miss the 5/16 threaded rod. I made each of the 4 sliders out of 2 pieces 11.5 inches long, 1/2 inch by 3/4 inch hardwood with spacers to make this slot. A 1 inch long spacer and a 2.5 inch long spacer at the roller end. The spacers are slightly more than 1/4 inch thick to make it so it'll slide easily on the attached bolts. And then I did drive in a few nails with my air gun, give a little extra security at the end where the roller is attached. Now, with the center line that I described before, right in the middle of the slot, I'm going to mark each arm for the shallow groove that I'll make with the router. To route the grooves for the sliders in the C-frame, I set up my router skill saw guide board. Now I'll reposition the guide, finish this groove, and then do the other pair. I've completed the shallow grooves for the sliders, and now I'm going to drill right in the center of each one 2/4 inch holes, being careful to miss the tie rod. That completes the support for the C-frame. And I even added an extra washer on top of the block here, an extra wood washer for a little more thickness and a little longer tie bolt, so that I can more easily get a wrench on this tie-down bolt when I have the C-frame in place. Okay, C-frame is attached with a couple of long 3/8 bolts. Had to have a flat spot on this washer to align with the surface of the C-frame. These wing nuts on the long 3/8 bolts are optional. There isn't room to spin them. Flat washers both sides of these 3/8 bolts. Now, with the C-frame bolted to the lathe bed, it should be square to the lathe bed. And looks pretty good. If it isn't quite square, you'd have to remove some material from my left side of this bottom C-frame member one way or the other till it is squared up, precisely square. The sliders that carry the rollers are attached with a couple of 1/4" bolts and flat washers. And on the back side, flat washers, lock washers, and wing nuts. The wheels are mounted on 5/16 bolts with a flat washer spacer and a nut secured with a little bit of thread locking compound. Just finger tight so don't put excessive pressure on the bearings in the wheels. With the sliders moved out so the wheels are almost touching the horizontal members, possible to turn up or to support it turning up to 8 inches in diameter. With the wheels mounted outboard, it's possible to support something up to 10 inches in diameter. And that completes the assembly. Paint or varnish up to you. If you're interested in building a steady rest, I've drawn up a set of plans that I think will be helpful. My plans consist of 3 drawings, the frame, all the measurements, details, the arms, the sliding arms that carry the rollers, the block by which the C-frame is mounted to the lathe bed, a little more detailed drawing of the frame to lathe bed mounting arrangement. Then I've summarized all the construction in the video with text and color pictures on 4 pages showing all the steps in the construction. Here's something that you can print out, take to the shop, and use as a reference in building the steady rest. I prepared a list of all the materials, all the wood and hardware materials that are used necessary for construction. It's a fairly brief list. It can be used as a shopping list. And I have a list of the tools that I used in building the steady rest. So this package of plans for the lathe steady rest, the package of plans for the hand wheel, degree wheel, and the plans for the retracting caster are all available in one reasonably priced package. And I'll put a link to the website, below, and a link to the plans order page address below. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you'll forward it to those that you think might be interested, especially if you know somebody that has one of these lanes or one of the clones of this lathe. Thank you for watching. Thank you.